Hey, what's going on, history nerds? It's your homie, Rebels88, and I am back with more time shenanigans. Today, I decided to go back to 1976 to bust some disco moves, and more importantly, to watch a spicy debate between Phyllis Schlafly and Betty Friedan. Now, pay attention, y'all, because here's a bit of background knowledge for your headspace. In this debate, you will hear about something called the ERA. What is that, you might ask? Well, it is the Equal Rights Amendment. It was voted upon in Congress in 1978, but it quickly became irrelevant. Phyllis Schlafly, one of the debaters, she's a heavily conservative woman who formed organizations like Stop ERA and the Eagle Forum, which advocated for the nuclear family and strongly defined gender roles. Both her and her members of her organization strongly oppose the ERA, if you couldn't already tell. Now, Betty Friedan, she's the antithesis of Phyllis. She's the leader for the fight in women's equality, and she is one of the biggest proponents of the ERA. As a matter of fact, she founded another organization called NOW, or the National Organization of Women, go figure, which is currently the largest feminine organization in this era with 500,000 members. So now that we got some background knowledge, I want you all to sit back, grab a snack, and cramp your wrinkly brains because this showdown is going to go off the rails pretty fast. Now please pray for my sanity.
Good morning, America. Today we will be discussing the Equal Rights Amendment. Sitting in the left corner, one of the most famous leading feminists, the author of The Feminine Mystique, our proponent for the ERA, Betty Friedan. In the other corner, the chairman of Stop ERA, the writer of the Phyllis Schlafly reports, we have Phyllis Schlafly. We also have this gentleman who claims to be a time traveler. Now, Phyllis, what does the Stop and Stop ERA stand for?
STOP stands for Stop Taking Our Privileges, because I am of the opinion that this amendment to make women equal to men simply goes too far.
Now, to begin our discussion, I will read the ERA. The amendment reads as follows. Section 1. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied nor abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Section 2. The Congress shall have the power to enforce, by appropriate legislation, the provisions of this article. Section 3. This amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification. As you can see, it's pretty brief. It's only 52 words. So, is the Equal Rights Amendment too vague, or does it simply extend women's rights to men, thus equalizing them? What is your opinion, Betty?
Well, we have spent years establishing where sex discrimination exists, and men are victims of it too. We've made some gains to say it's wrong to have sex discrimination in employment, in education, and in pay, in mortgage and credit. All these things, even in sports, women against women. But these laws are not being enforced. And with the economic crisis we're in now, layoffs are really facing women with hard times. And there's a danger that some of these programs and laws against sex discrimination will be removed. So we need constitutional guarantee of equality. Make sense?
But when you make the laws apply equally to men and women, you end up taking away many of the rights women now have. For example, the Equal Rights Amendment will make our young women subject to the draft and military combat the next time we have one of these wars that we have every 10 years. Because no longer could you have it just apply to males, it would have to apply to females. The ERA is a big attack on the rights of the homemaker. The laws of every state make the obligation of the husband to support his wife, to provide her with the home, and to support their minor children.
As opposed to the major children.
The woman in the home can draw Social Security benefits based on her husband's earnings, even though she's been a homemaker all her life. Now, all these things will be lost when you apply a rule that says everything must be equal. Until you can make it equal for men to have babies just like women, it is a double burden to the women to say that rules for family support should be equal for the husband and the wife. The ERA ends up taking away the right of women to be supported by their husband and to have the right to get credit in stores based on her husband's earnings and all the rights of a wife.
And what exactly would those rights be?
The right of a woman to be completely dependent on a man.
Hey, no, wait a minute. Wait.
Can we talk about the draft? Let's talk about the draft. We know that the draft so far has been abolished until a national emergency. Already women are serving in the armed forces, and they have the best of both worlds. They have the same pay, the same rank, the same fringe benefits, but they're kept out of combat.
There have been 5 million young men drafted now. Do you want another 5 million young women drafted involuntarily and sent off to these wars where politicians will surely get us into again?
I really don't know which. If you have real reasons, okay, not hypocritical ones and not false ones, there is no draft now. I don't want another draft in 10 years.
I don't think you know I know what I mean.
I think the American people have learned a lot in the Vietnam War, and there won't be again such an easy way of risking the lives of American boys or girls.
Oh yeah? You said that after Korea? Whoa, we'll never have another. We'll never get involved in another. Or after it's our responsibility that we never get involved. The fundamental difference between those against the ERA and those for it is I think women should have the choice not to serve.
Pro-choice queen?
And I think women wouldn't want her son killed any more than she'd want her daughter killed.
Can we move on to another point? Now, Phyllis, you mentioned that a woman has the privilege to have her husband support her. Are you familiar with McGuire versus McGuire in Nebraska of 1953?
All right, now for context, that ruling said that women could not sue their husbands for financial support if they were still living in the same house.
Oh sure, that's the only case the proponent can cite out of thousands of domestic relations cases in this country.
It is, however, a legal precedent that will require the Sin versus Sin and Price versus Price cases to prove that a woman has the right to financial liberty in a marriage.
That doesn't prove any except don't marry a man to reform him.
The problem is that as long as a marriage is intact, the government will not interfere to protect the rights of women.
The government interferes all the time. For instance, the law says a woman can get an abortion without consulting her husband.
But wait a minute. But you do get that no one's being forced to do that, right? Like, what happened to a woman's right to choose?
There is no law that says that when you get married, you get a perfect fairy tale. You have to realize the financial insecurity a lot of women face, especially divorced women.
Well, the ERA is not going to keep your husband around.
No, it is not. But we need the ERA because if you get a divorce now, there is no provision that gives women equal value.
In the existing custom, she gets the children, and I think that's worth a lot more than money.
Well, if they don't have a right to child support, they might not be able to take care of their children. Do you want your children starving?
No, but aren't they glad they got their children?
Why should the woman always get the child? What if the woman is not deserving?
All else being equal, the women has a presumption. The ERA won't give you child support payments.
But are they getting it now?
Well, you're getting a lot more money now than what you would with the ERA.
That's not what it would do at all. The ERA would simply provide a constitutional basis for the argument that Social Security, pension plan, and all the laws against sex discrimination must include women in their own right and not as a spouse.
Well, it was back in 1895 that the Supreme Court said that women have all the constitutional protection in the case of Minor v. Harperset. I don't think the ERA is going to add any more constitutional protections.
Okay, please be careful with that way of thinking. I don't want to give you any major spoilers for what's going to happen. Let's just say that those Supreme Court cases you value, they aren't exactly as permanent as you think.
What?
Let's move on. We want to talk about co-ed bathrooms in single-sex schools. Phyllis?
Yes. Under the present federal law, the administration of single-sex colleges are exempt from the fundamental federal law against sex discrimination, so there are some schools that have remained all women. Some examples being Smith, or Wellesley, or Bryn Mawr. Now that would become illegal under the Equal Rights Amendment because they discriminate by definition on the basis of sex, and you can have no exception in the ERA. Now, I don't know why anybody wants to take away from women their right to choose a single-sex school, but this is the psychology of compulsion and the intolerance of those who are pushing for a gender-free society which no longer recognizes any difference or separation of treatment between men and women anytime, anywhere.
You see, you're a total choice pro queen.
What about schools that exclude women?
Well, I think you have the right to choose. 95% of our people prefer co-ed schools, but why stamp out the rights of the majority? What if they want a single-sex school?
Betty, do you have any comments?
I think that the basic thrust is that the quotas and the outright barring of women to law schools...
Name one law school that bars women.
Well, until...
Name one law school that bars women.
Harvard Law School barred women until fairly
Name
recently.
one bar that bars women today.
I've said we have laws barring sex discrimination in education, and if it is enforced right, it should bar not only the quotas that outright are denial to women out of higher education, but it should bar those indirect quotas which make women have to have higher grades than men to get into the same schools, and so on. In other words, we have to get higher grades to get into schools.
Name one school where women have to get higher grades to get into school.
This is true in...
Name one.
In a number of universities.
Name one.
I could name a dozen. I could name 30.
You don't need to name 30, just name one.
Ooh, Claremont's Men College.
Oh, wait a minute. West Point Military Academy. Ah,
See, you can't name one.
Yeah, right. Can we move on to co-ed bathrooms? Can we talk about that? We already go to the same bathrooms on airplanes and buses. Does this mean that with the Equal Rights Amendment, Phyllis, if it is passed, that there will no longer be men and women on the doors, but us or we or whatever?
Well, it's a matter of whatever the Supreme Court decides. If you have faith in their decision, it may not matter to you, but I think that the court will make us all go in the same bathroom. Now, I recognize other people think contrary, but you just said it's all right with you to have co-ed bathrooms.
I didn't say that it was all right. I said we already go to the same bathroom, not right at the same time on buses and airplanes.
But the thing is, do you want it in grade schools? Will we have it in grade schools?
Anyway, look, let's have some sense about this silly bathroom argument. I mean that the bathroom argument, it's the absolutely symbolizes all the nonsense that is being spread to create false fear about the Equal Rights Amendment. There is nothing in the Equal Rights Amendment that will affect the privacy of the way people go to the toilet. Nothing whatsoever. The only way it will be affected is if having only one bathroom in a small company, like saying this, if you have only one bathroom in this television station, and if that was a way for you to deny a woman a job by saying we only have one bathroom, and that is something that has been used to exclude women. Either they'd have to put in a second bathroom, or they would have to let the woman use the men's bathroom, but not necessarily at the same time. You understand how hysterical about this whole thing you are. Let's realize, certain facts that in American family, where we grew up, I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. I don't know where you grew up, but unless we were quite rich, there was only one bathroom in the house, and that bathroom was used by Mama and Daddy and by Aunt Jane if she visited, and Junior and Janie and Grandma and Grandpa, and they didn't use it at the same time, and great sinful immorality did not ensue.
But I would just like to say, this demonstrated that you're perfectly comfortable with the situation where you have no discrimination between men and women in regard to restrooms. And it's the only thing that, what are you talking about, planes or homes, when it's something else when you're talking about grade schools.
Okay, can we move on to the next point? Will the ERA, if it is passed, help the marriage of homosexuals? Will they be able to get married under the law?
Well, the ERA says that your equality of rights should not be denied on account of sex. Now, if you want to deny a marriage license to a man and a man, it's precisely on the basis of sex that you deny it, and therefore I feel we would have immediate litigation, and about 4 or 5 lawyers I asked them to say yes, the homosexuals will win.
You don't think they should get married?
I do not think that homosexuals should have the rights of husbands and wives, which are the rights to adopt children, to file joint tax incomes, or to the schools.
but are they protected under the Constitution? I mean, come on, they're Americans.
They have rights. They have the right of free speech, free press, and all that sort of things, but they should not have the particular rights that belong to a husband and wife.
Even if it makes them happy?
Well, no. I may make you happy to commit all kinds of crimes.
Okay, do you think homosexuality is a crime?
Well, it is in many states.
Betty?
Well, I think that the right to sexual privacy and the right to choice is a basic American right, and homosexuality is not a crime. I mean that it isn't about what's against the law. In many states, but however, that isn't what we are discussing. The ERA won't affect what they do behind closed doors, but it will affect their public rights.
I don't think that perverts should have the right that belongs to husbands and wives.
Do you feel that homosexuals are perverts? The American Psychiatric Association said no.
That's their opinion, and I have mine.
But I think that the Constitution of the United States should apply whether you like someone or not. They have the right to protection. And look, the ERA will not affect homosexual marriage. That's discrimination based on sex. And this is not about the sex that happens in the bedroom. This is about biological sex. Homosexuality can be between male or female.
Excuse me for interrupting. Betty Frieden and Phyllis Schlafly, we want to thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we've run out of time. I'd like to invite you to come back. We have until 1979 to discuss this.
Well, I hope we get it passed in 76.
Well, best of luck to both of you. Maybe that's mutually exclusive. Thank you both for joining us on Good Morning America. It's been very interesting.
Like and subscribe.